Hi boys and girls, I'm so glad that you joined us today. Today we're going to learn about Romans 12 verse 13, and this is what it says. It says, share with God's people who are in need, practice hospitality. Sharing. Well, I think we probably all know what that means, and we've done it before. We can share our toys, or sometimes we share a snack with somebody. Hospitality, that's another word in our verse. That's a really big word. Sometimes when I don't know what it means in one Bible, I looked it up in another Bible, and this is what it says. It says, share with God's people who need help. Look for people who need help and welcome them into your homes. So, how do we share with God's people who need help? Well, if we think about God's people who are in Emmanuel, there's something called a bulletin that your parents will get every single week. And in there is information about people who we might be able to help and who might need our help. So there might be people who are maybe sad because somebody died in their family or someone who is sick. So it helps us to know that we can pray for them, or maybe we can make a meal or send a card. So that's one way we can help God's people who are in need. Well, are only people in Emmanuel God's people? If we think a little bit bigger, maybe we can think about helping all people in all churches. Those are all God's people, are they not? Yes, we can definitely help them. But we can even think even bigger than that. What about all people all over the world who might need help? Because they're God's people too, right? God made everyone, so all people are God's people, and God asks us to help them. If we think about Romans 12 verse 13 again, God is giving us actions to do. He says, I want you to share with God's people and practice hospitality. Look for people who need help. So what God's asking us to do is to actually notice people who need help. So we have to look hard, maybe like being a detective, seeing people who might need help in our neighborhood or further around in our city or even around the world. And God asks us to be ready to help them and also to welcome them. So maybe you think, okay, fine, well, I share. My mom and dad tell me to share, so I share. But I think God wants us to help willingly and have a happy heart when we're sharing. So why does God want us to help others and to show hospitality, or that means to welcome other people? We know that God has been so generous to us because he sent Jesus to us, and he even sent his son to die for us. So in that same way, we can show God's love to other people. Certainly if we think about Jesus, and there's lots of stories in the Bible that talk about how Jesus welcomed people and wanted people and cared for people. He helped heal people, he talked to lonely people, he invited people to be with him. Think about the disciples, he invited them to join him. He also healed people. So there's lots of ways that Jesus showed us how we can show God's love to everyone around us. So now you might be thinking, sharing and welcoming, hospitality, all of these things sound kind of more things that grown-ups need to do. Well, boys and girls, everybody can do these things, even you. So let's stop and think about some things that maybe you could do. How about maybe in your neighborhood? Maybe when you're going for a walk and you notice that one of your neighbors, their flowers are looking like they need some watering. Or maybe there's some garbage. Maybe you could help them. Or how about thinking about at school or at church? Maybe there's a new person there. And you know what, boys and girls, sometimes we forget to be welcoming to new people. Sometimes we're so busy looking at them and wondering what they're going to do that we forget to be welcoming. And one of the simplest ways that you can be welcoming is just to smile at them. That shows that you're super friendly, and that person will probably feel that maybe you want to be their friend. How about at the park? I know it's kind of tough at the park right now because of COVID, but maybe there's a child who's playing all by themselves, and maybe you could think of a way maybe to take turns on the slide, or kick a soccer ball back and forth. These are all ways that you can welcome people. And how about at your own house? Certainly sometimes you might have friends coming over, or maybe even your cousins. And sometimes we show our toys, but how about one time you ask them what they want to play instead of deciding? Because that really tells the other person that you're thinking about them and that you think that they're important. That's how you can show that you care for them. So today we've learned about a lot of different ways that we can share with God's people who are in need, and we can look for people who might need our help and welcome them. Now that we've done our lesson, boys and girls, there's some different things that we can do to help us think about Romans 12 verse 13 a little bit more, about how we can share with God's people who are in need and how we can practice hospitality, how we can welcome people. So there's a few things that I thought you could do. For those of you who like making cards or making crafts, you could make a card for someone. I didn't even start my card, but all you need is a piece of paper, you fold it, and you can make a welcome card to somebody. You could make a card for somebody maybe who is feeling sick or feeling lonely. Because you know what, there's lots of people who are feeling lonely right now, especially people who live by themselves during COVID. So you could make a card if that's something that you'd like to do. Another thing you can do if you're gonna have maybe some people coming over sometime is you could make a welcome placemat for them. So this is what you do for that. For this craft, you'll need 2 different pieces of paper. If they're different colors, that would be good. If you could certainly do it with white, if you had white. But if you had 2 different colors of paper. And so for one of the papers, and I've kind of showed you here already, you start with one. What you do is just kind of fold it over like this, and then we're going to cut it into strips. So when you're cutting your strips, you can't start right at the very end. You got to start in a little bit, and don't cut all the way. We don't want them to fall off. We just got to start them like this. So I'm going to do a few more cuts here to show you. If they're even, you know, that's pretty good, but if they're not totally even, that won't even matter either. So I'm just going to cut them like this. So when you're done cutting, your paper should look like this with all these little pieces in there, but they're all attached to the same piece. Now, then you take your second piece of paper and you're going to take it this way and you're going to cut strips all along like this. And you're going to cut it all the way till the whole sheet is finished, and maybe they'll be about the same width. It doesn't totally matter. And what you're going to do is get that piece of paper and weave it in and out and up and down through this. Let me do that there. And when you get to the end, you can either tape it or glue it so that it'll stay in place, okay? And then I'm going to show you one more strip here. Here I have to go over here because look, let me just think here. This way, yeah. You want to do it the opposite way. Now we're going to start under and over and under and over again, skipping some spot. And basically, as you can see, it's kind of going to make a checkerboard pattern all the way across. So I'm going to just put my camera on pause and I'm going to finish my craft and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So here's my completed placemat, boys and girls, and if I flip it over, it's actually reversible, and I wrote the word welcome on it. You could write that, or you could write the person's name on there, and whoever would get that from you, I'm sure would feel very welcome at your house. Now I know some people prefer maybe a challenge instead of doing a craft. So here's an idea for a challenge that you could do. What you need is pieces of paper, and you write down everybody's name, whoever's going to play the challenge with you and your family, and you put all the names like in a bowl or a bag or something, and everybody needs to take a name. And just make sure it's not your own name. It's got to be somebody else's name. And what you need to do is you have to think about a special snack that that person would really enjoy. So the key thing here, boys and girls, is to remember to think about something that they would not like, not something that you would like, but what their favorite, maybe one of their favorite snacks would be, or a special snack for that person that they might enjoy. And then when you're all done, you come and you can give it to each other, and then you can tell them about why you thought that that would be a snack that they would enjoy. Now, if you don't want to do it with your whole family and you just want to surprise your whole family, you could do that too. That you could make all the snacks for the people. So if I was going to make a snack for my daughter Elena, I would definitely give her popcorn because she loves popcorn. That's her favorite snack. I wouldn't give that to David though, because that's not his. His favorite snack is goldfish, so that would be his. Anyways, boys and girls, I hope you learned about lots of different ways that you can share with God's people who are in need and welcome others.